folks, welcome to a special edition of the Jake Feinberg Show. And it's about 120 degrees here in Tucson. It's going to be a hot day, but inside I'm staying cool. And behind the beat, maybe on top of the beat or in front of the beat, with a gifted percussionist and a guy who was steeped in bebop and jazz, and from that was able to move on to the next part of the vocabulary and just free himself and play tremendously free spiritual jazz within the African context. And he continues to do this in an artistic fashion, weaving in multimedia, multi-sensory entertainment, poetry, riffing, beats, and the rhythms and the timeless rhythms of the motherland of Africa. William Hooker, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Jake, thank you so much for calling me.
Yeah, man. No,
thank you so much for thinking about me.
Hey, man. Listen, I mean, it's my job as a Gen X broadcaster to reach everybody in the brother and sisterhood who has played a role in our cultural heritage and creating on America's only true art form. There's a lot of them that I still haven't gotten to, but you're one of them I've been looking forward to talking to for a variety of reasons, so it truly is an honor.
Likewise. Nothing more I could say other than let's talk.
Yeah, baby. I wanted to talk to you about something. Can you talk about how you got rooted in the language of bebop? I mean, more and more the cats that I talk to, being 38, I'm looking at younger generations. I don't scour the music scene. Tucson is not a hotbed of melodic improvisation, but I do feel like in pop culture, if you don't dig deep enough, people think, well, you need to start around Kind of Blue, or you need to start when Coltrane was doing his Impulse records and start from there. And what happens is, ultimately you start with, you're not going back far enough. The cats that were able to add new vocabulary to the language of music were card-carrying beboppers. And I wanted you to talk about your experience playing that kind of music.
Okay. Let me think back. Because I say that because I'll try to keep it as simple as possible.
No, go. Just do what you feel, man. Just go.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it as simple as possible because obviously every person follows their own path or finds their own path into whatever creative expression musically that is going to take them from one step to another. And in my case, it just so happened that I was in a situation where many of the people around me in the Northeast were rooted in this music, and they really needed a person that they thought was going to be strong enough to be able to play it and learn from it with respect, and also be able to carry it forward. And they chose me as a person to do that. So it was really a matter of me being born into a situation that I was around a lot of people that really already knew the vocabulary, knew the library, understood the language, had very, very heavy experiences in their own lives in terms of who they played with and what they did. And they just basically looked out for me and passed this tradition on to me. And I struggled initially, obviously, because you have to think differently. You have to think differently in terms of you have to grow up pretty fast, because I wasn't even able to go and play in clubs. And so because of that, I had to keep not, I won't say a low profile, but I had to keep a profile of being aware of what was around me so that I didn't get caught up in a lot of foolishness, and still learn that was my situation, and all I can say is the Black Book contributed to it. Learning and playing with people who were just playing stand-up bass and acoustic pianos.
Yeah, no, I want to. This is like so important because you even in your bio, you never mention names specifically, and I'm always curious about. I mean, that place. I happened to wake up this morning and I was like, I was transcribing my interview with Toshiko Akiyoshi, and she was talking about the rhythm section of Eddie Marshall and Gene Chirico, and that was the start of that one. You had Alan Dawson. That New England corridor was a hotbed of activity, and I'd like to know some of the cats that you were mentoring you.
Well, to be honest with you, I wouldn't even want to answer that question because these people, you would never know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
You've mentioned people that have strong names in terms of the history of the music, and in terms of the history of the music, the history of jazz, quote unquote. But I wasn't in that situation. I won't say that I wasn't in that situation. Sometimes you would come across that situation where you would meet someone that you felt was like an idol. But at a certain point, it was really dealing with people that you would never know. And there were so many of them that I wouldn't even want to even deal with it because there was a lot of club work. And in going to all these various clubs and going to all these places, from, say, Boston all the way down to New Jersey, and playing frequently, you came across a lot of people that really had a lot of skill.
Oh, I think you need to understand. I mean, I'm not saying you have to go through the.
No, I'm not. I won't go through that.
No, but what I'm saying is that my program, part of my program, is dedicated to the unsung. I could care less if they're part of the book of jazz. I'm saying that. I mean, right. The fact that. There's just so many. Pressure points. What's that?
So many people out there.
Well, there's, and there was this. I guess that's more to the point is that when you did become of age, can you definitively say that club circuit from, New England through the tri-state area helped put money in your pocket?
I was never of age.
You were never.
That's one thing. Okay. No, I wasn't. When I went into this, I wasn't of age. That's one thing I want to make clear.
Mm-hmm.
I was like 14, 15, and I was playing professionally.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a matter of me getting money in my pocket because at that time, I was still living at home, and I was going to high school, and you know what I'm saying? And it was really the main thing on my mind was really like getting out of high school with good grades, so that perhaps I could go to university.
I'm curious. I have a question. I'm curious.
Yeah. I want to take you really deep into it.
No, we're gonna go. I'm gonna drill down because,
because I want you to understand that when your mother and father are looking after you with and they're guiding you, and what you're trying to do in terms of being. I won't even say being a young man. I'll say being a teenager. Because I was a musician and I didn't even realize that that's what I was. I was playing like 4 nights a week, but it didn't matter to me because I was really studying. I was studying to do something completely different than play music. I never studied music, ever. That's one thing you probably know that about me.
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's really fantastic stuff. I mean, so you just were playing by ear and feel.
I was playing by ear and by feel, and the people that showed me the Black Book and taught me the Black Book were dealing with the classic, playing to the changes and improvising off of the changes, dealing with rhythm, dealing with speed, dealing with variety, because you have to know how to play not only sticks, but you have to know how to play brushes, young age. And what was happening with me was that it was just icing on the cake for me.
Right.
I mean, you know, any money that I made, it wasn't money in my pocket. It was just money. You know, I got money. So that's cool because I didn't have to worry about rent. I didn't have to worry about a family. I was a teenager. I was a kid.
What was the name? What was the name of? So I mean, like a couple things, like because I mean, was the policy that I know that, for instance, like Lenny White, for instance, his dad would take him to. He got a gig with Jackie McLean and. You know, the policy, and he was your age. You know, he was 15, 16 years old.
I knew him way before that.
Right. So, but the truth is that the policy was that his dad said, "Listen, I mean, this is what you want to do. You want to be a professional drummer. I'll support that. You know, but we're waking up together at 6:30 in the morning. You're going to be at school. You know, because you had gigs at night, and so your folks basically were cool with the." I mean, can you talk about how supportive they were? I mean, would they, was their policy that they just said, listen, William, you can do what you want, but, you know, you better get up for school, you know, that kind of thing? Because you
let me dig into that a little bit. First of all, I was an excellent student. I got straight A's in school. And I got straight A's in all of my studies. So because of that, I never had a problem with school. I was getting ready to go in to become a dentist. I was going to get ready to go to Tufts. And I studied political science, sociology, and history. Those are my majors. And throughout the course of that, I knew that I had to take certain courses to get through. So, but that's a little bit later. They kind of. My father was very, very open-minded. He realized that, you know, I was a young man, and I did young man stuff. You know, I did the young man stuff that every young man does, but not perhaps to the point of fraternity or anything like that.
Right.
I was never one of those types. And I was very, very, I was very, very open to diversity in terms of being around a lot of different people all the time. And that's another thing that a lot of people didn't do. They weren't really around a lot of people all the time. A lot of different kinds of people, different ethnic backgrounds, different classes, different, what would you say, different streams of thought, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, different, I mean, just regular cats, you know?
No, these weren't regular cats. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
What separated, I mean, no, what I'm saying
I was around the creme de la creme of the entire, I am a member of the black bourgeoisie, the talented 10th. That's my family background. You know what I mean? Like, as W.E.B. Du Bois said, the talented 10th. That is my background.
So I guess what I'm getting, so you came from a high society family, but you didn't.
No, not high society, because we're black. You got to remember, if you're black during those times, you could have an education, but you didn't have. You could have an education. Your family could be upstanding in the community, but there's always somebody somewhere that's looking at you as you have to be Superman to be in their company.
Right. No. I mean that, and that's still. I dig that. What I'm saying is, but the reality is that you put yourself out there, and you were with all different types of different people of all different economic strata. They look different. Yeah. You know, they were street, and you didn't. You were not. You dug that.
I dug it, and I dug it, and I flowed with it, right. And I was really good with it. You know, I was good. You know, I had people looking out for me. Right. You know, I really did. I had people looking out for me. You know,
it's pretty enlightening. I mean, it's pretty enlightening. You're pretty enlightened cat, like as a teenager. It's unbelievable. that I didn't realize it at the time. Yeah, right.
But you know, then when you look back at it and you see some of the things you're exposed to, and you see what was happening around you, even though you're really brought up in like basically a segregated situation, because the projects that I grew up with, they were segregated. I didn't even realize that until like maybe about 5 years ago, when a guy who's like 96 years old now that grew up with my father, not grew up with my father, but came up north with my father. My father was part of the Great Migration, from the south to the north.
Yes.
And he met a gentleman, and the gentleman now is like 96. And he said to me in a very, very blunt way, he said, you didn't realize that where we were living was segregated? And I said, no, I didn't realize it. And I didn't realize it because I was just having too much fun. I was just all over the place. I was like running wild. I was just like, very, very happy guy. You know what I'm saying? And I was just hanging out with everybody, and that was and it just so happened that music was a part of that. Music was a part of that, and music afforded me the opportunity to be around all kinds of people, to be known by all kinds of people, and to actually hang with people that probably were much older than me, that thrust me into life itself at a very early age. So because of that, a lot of things that I found, a lot of things that I see a lot of cats doing, I just don't even want to do because I did it when I was like 20. I don't do this. It's crazy. But it's not really crazy, Jake. It's just my life.
But could you give an example?
No, I don't want to give an example.
Well,
I don't want to go there. Jake,
I know, but I mean, part of this. I'm not in this case, but.
All right. I'll give you a broad example. Okay. I'll give you a broad example. Okay. Clubs.
Yes.
Okay. I'm like 15, 16. I can't be admitted into the club. They get me to go into the club because I'm playing the drum. I'm the drummer. I'm playing with men that are grown men, they got families and stuff. So I go and I play, and I'm playing 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week. And I'm going from, let's say, I'm making about an hour and a half drive commute to where we're playing. So I go into these places, and there's drug dealers, there's prostitutes, there's, all kind of people, street people,
Absolutely.
Street people, because this is the club scene, the black club scene.
Absolutely, I've documented it very well. I know what it's about.
Okay, so I'm in there. I'm in the middle of it, and I'm a kid, and I'm learning how to play music, and I'm really getting off on playing, and I'm watching people around me, older men doing what they're doing, and still looking out for me, but still they're doing what they're doing.
Sure.
And I'm just this kid. So I just made sure that I got home safe because my mother told these men, you know what? I'm entrusting him with you. Make sure he's back here and make sure all that stuff you guys are doing, it's not happening. So, lucky in that sense.
Was there
it's like having a bunch of like I have a bunch of godfathers around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they were whatever. Maybe they were doing heroin or they were strung out. But I mean, did they still?
They weren't doing heroin. They weren't doing heroin,
but they were doing their thing. No. But they. What
would make you go to heroin? What would make you go into that dark place?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it just, it was rampant amongst all the musicians for
not amongst the musicians that I knew. Not amongst us.
Right, but if you're playing,
that's kind of an illusion.
If you're playing it, listen, and we'll get into this later, but if you're playing in the Fillmore district.
Where?
In San Francisco, a dawn session, and there's pimps and there's hookers and there's drugs. I've done enough to know that, cats in your shoes. Like I just interviewed Emil Richards, the amazing percussionist. He's 84 years old, and this guy who played oboe with Charlie Parker, he's like, listen, you stay away from heroin, and if anybody tells you you're corny, you say that they're corny for even exposing you to that stuff, because everybody was junked out on that stuff. That's all I'm saying. And so,
what I'm saying, and you are listening to my interpretation, obviously. I played for the key club of the people who were like, they were ambassadors to this country while we were playing. Those are the kind of people I played for. In many cases, major universities throughout the whole Northeast. And these people would come in from Ghana. They'd come in from Nigeria. They'd come in from Senegal.
Wow.
And these were some of the people who we had gigs playing for. So it wasn't, and then, yeah, you'd play in a club. You play in a club 3 nights. But at the end of that third night, you may play at a ball in it's like going to Kennedy Center. You see, so all of these things were happening all at once.
Right.
It wasn't like it wasn't either right or left. I was really seriously dead in the middle. And when I say the middle, I'm talking about the middle of like darkness and light, the middle of yin and yang, the middle of poverty and strung out and all that craziness, all the way up to people who had castles and they're coming into this country and there were like Kwame Nkrumahs, these kind of people.
This is the now you're getting.
So you got to remember.
No, I'm there. You're doing a great. Now you're waxing. Now you're waxing poetic. Right?
And also, what I'm doing at the very same time, I'm seeing all of these things happening.
Yeah.
I'm seeing all these things happening, and money is coming my way. That's fine. But but by the same token, as I said before, Jake, I was always a good student. I don't know. I just knew how to do that. I just knew how to do that, man. It didn't stress me. Half the time I was in high school, man, I didn't even go to class. I really didn't.
Yeah, you were one of those cats that I would have really despised because you didn't need to really prepare. You didn't study that hard, but you
would have despised me because you and I would have hung out.
Yeah, we would have. No, I'm saying I would have been jealous because you.
No, you wouldn't have been jealous. You would have been driving the car because you maybe had been a little bit older than me, and it would have been a convertible. And while everybody else was like in the lunchroom, you and me be going having pizzas over at the pizza house. And then we came back in.
Right.
When we came back in, everybody would see that it was me, so you were off the hook, and everything was cool. That's what it was. That's what it was. That's what it was, man. And like, yeah, that's what it was. And like, what can I tell you?
I get. What I wanted to talk to you about
this is William Hooker, Jake. This is William Hooker.
No, I mean, listen, I'm digging it. I just like. Do you? Can you talk about if you ever knew if those ambassadors and people from Ghana and Lagos? Can you talk about their concepts of melodic improvisation? I mean,
no, I can't.
Why?
Because we didn't talk about that kind of stuff.
I guess all I'm trying to say is that jazz is a fusion of Europe.
Yeah, but I didn't talk to them about that. I talked to them about government and international relationships. That's what I talked to them about.
What was enlightening to you at that time?
What was enlightening to me at that time was there were black people here that went to university and couldn't get any respect, and people were coming over from other countries, and they were getting all kind of respect in universities, in government situations.
Why was that?
They were just hooked up. I can't really explain it. I can't explain it. I just tell you what, as an observer.
Or was it when you say hooked up, they had money?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
They either had money or they were part of the governmental structures of different kinds of countries.
Interesting that they would be looked at with more prestige than the African Americans in their own country.
What makes you Why is that? Well, I don't say that. That's not. Yeah, it is interesting.
Well, no, but that was that?
No, it's disgusting, Jake. It's disgusting.
That's right. That's all I'm saying. I mean, listen.
And you know why it was disgusting to me? You know why it was disgusting to me?
Because you're an African American.
I could go, huh?
Because you're an African American that was born in this country.
Well, it was disgusting because people will be people, and I don't care if they're black, white, or whatever. There's always somebody, usually in certain situations, that's trying to get over on somebody else. And what I was a witness to was all of these people who really had no idea of what African American music and the history of this jazz is about. And here I am, I'm like in the middle of this situation, but it didn't matter to them that we had a tradition about jazz or we had a tradition about what we're playing and all this kind of stuff. That didn't matter to them. What mattered to them was power. Power where they were from. And because of that, there was sort of a divide between my thinking about who they were and my even wanting to understand who they were. Because at a certain point, I really didn't care.
Right. This is so important. This is so important.
The next day, I'd be going in with the pimps and the prostitutes, and those people had my back. And these other people who supposedly were all that by quote-unquote white society, all they cared about was themselves. And I saw that very clearly. Very, very clearly.
Could you just, again, in a general sense, give an example? I mean, I'm 38. I understand that we are living through a more covert time as far as racism as opposed to how overt it was back maybe 60 years ago, 50 years ago. But I just want you to articulate how you knew that they did not care about the traditions of jazz. Like how was that?
How did I know? I knew because the places where the people were, they were never there. They didn't put their butts in the seats to learn. They didn't put their butts in the seats to try and figure out what was going on. They didn't put their butts in the seats to be close to those people that were in the very same communities that were offering them the caviar and the champagne. And I'm talking about major places like Yale University, that's what I'm talking about.
Wow. What a scathing rebuke of the Ivory Tower Society. Unbelievable, man. Really unbelievable.
Well, it's just that, it's just that this is part of what I saw.
Well, you saw it. That's the point, is that, people see that, people hear this on hate radio now. They hear about it, they read about it, they see it on cable news, but you saw it firsthand. And I think the difference now, one of the differences now is, because music programs were taken out of schools and a lot of African Americans and Latinos stopped playing instruments and the club circuit doesn't exist anymore, that ability to see and to be educated by that ignorance is no longer available. And that to me is a very troubling thing for our culture. Because I believe that the music of jazz is a street music. I don't need to tell you this. It should be out and in the streets. It should be being blasted into the streets because it is a street music. I mean, it's inherently part of the blues. And now you have people that are holed up with their digital technology. They don't have the rudiments of instruments. Maybe they're sampling beats, but they're not honing their craft. There's no circuit. So they can't develop their own individual sound. So they can't see it. They can't see the ignorance or whatever you want to call it, the power, just the power grab. And to me, that's just I understand why cats like Fela Kuti and Hugh Masekela, they were outraged too, because some high society people from Africa.
Sure.
From Africa missed the boat. They didn't care. They were in it for themselves.
Yeah.
So
Fela's like a prince. Fela's like a king. I mean, right up the street living from me, man, is like Olatunji. Olatunji was like a king.
Olatunji lived up the street from you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So classy.
On the west side, upper west side. Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was going to run for president for his country. I mean, but that's what I'm trying to get across to you. I'm trying to get across to you that in my world, where William Hooker world is,
Yes.
I was seeing not only music, but I was seeing the relationship that music was telling me about life, about spirituality, about relationships, human relationships, and right human relationships, goodwill. All these things were like an example. It's like the macrocosm is the macrocosm, and vice versa. I wasn't really looking at it in terms of honing my craft. I was, yeah, because that's basically what I tried to do. You know, I didn't want to get up there and, you know, somebody called Cherokee and I can't play it. I mean, that's kind of pitiful. You know, you know, that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing, right? Or I didn't. That's a part of just being able to like do what you got to do. You know, but I think that at a certain point, I really started to see all of the ripples that were in the pond. You know, like when you know, that's what I was seeing that very early on.
This is really important, man. I really, and being aware enough. You were. I mean, maybe that's the other part of it is awareness and using auditory skills. And also, you just seeing people's body language, also realizing that their priorities, the least of their priorities was.
Yeah, and also it's in my DNA. I think it's in my DNA.
Yeah, it sounds like. I mean, it seems like you can.
Like,
I like it.
My mother and father were both very, very. I mean, they weren't like looking at me like, you know, you're the prince of all princes and all this kind of stuff. But I mean, they definitely gave me a strong background and a structure to be able to function in life. You know, I mean, they were from the South. They knew what was going on up here. They knew what was going on. They knew what they had to do, and they did it. And I saw. I had good examples to look at.
Absolutely.
You know, it wasn't like I woke up in the morning and like there was nobody there. I mean, I'm a lucky guy, man. I'm a lucky guy in many, many respects. And I attribute that to a lot of different things. So, you know, I would be the first one to say that it could be part of it is karma. Could be, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't dismiss that, and I don't either. I really don't.
No, I just like the candor and the honesty. I wanted to actually ask you.
Good, Jake. Good. I'm glad that I'm glad that my energy isn't like oh man, back up. You know what I mean?
No. I mean, you know what I'm saying, man. Listen, man. Listen. I mean, dude, I've been woodshedding. You
probably knew I was going to be like that.
No. You know what? I don't. This is to me. I just continue. I know that you know we're just going to continue on this trip and see where it goes. I'm having a ball, but I just
great. Good.
Yeah.
What else are you thinking?
Can you talk about the? Did you ever play in an organ drums duo before the organ trio?
Before the organ trio?
Yeah, well, I mean, your bio states you had this organ trio. I'm infatuated with these organ trios, which were very huge. The organ was coming out of the church from the gospel setting into the nightclub, but also what was very trendy at that time was drums and organ. And I want to know if you played in a dual setting with just drums and organ.
Many times.
Can you talk about how you got?
See my answer? Many times.
Yeah, and
but I'll be honest with you, Jake.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff I kind of don't want to go back to. I don't want to go back to talking about that because I'll be honest with you. There have been quite a few interviews that really touched on a lot of this stuff that we're talking about now. Not that I don't want to go back over it, but there have been some really, really good interviews I would really, really refer people to. One was done by Cadence, the very first one. And there's been one done by Thomas Stanley for The Wire. It was, Signal to Noise. Signal to Noise, I think it was. Signal to Noise, like 7 pages. And there was another one that was done by this guy. You might even know of him. You know Neil Strauss?
No.
The writer?
No.
Neil Strauss, the writer?
I do not.
He writes for Rolling Stone.
Okay.
He writes for Rolling Stone. Every once in a while, they give him a really big, for a long while, he was their main writer. And I knew him when he was going to Columbia University as a undergrad. And now he's one of the writers of, he's a writer, out there. And we did a few really, really long, extensive interviews, for like these books, these magazines like Option and I'm trying to think, Signal to Noise, not Signal to Noise, but
Right. Well, I'll be honest with you. That stuff, that's all well and good, but you don't know where my question's going. So what I'm trying.
Oh, okay then. All right then. I got you.
Yeah. I guess what I say. I think this is the point: is that this is not about preservation. This is about promotion for future generations. Okay.
Okay.
You may whatever you see on Facebook is fine. I've gone to the deepest wells to. Basically, I'm fascinated with rhythms, and what I'm trying to get at is the idea that for the last couple of decades, we've had digital beats crunched into the ears of younger cats, including my two daughters. They don't know what space is in the music. They don't know how to use rebound. They don't know what rebound is. They don't know what space is in the music. And I'm trying to get at the idea of how you developed your own rhythmic sense, because there were cats like Kenny Clark and Max Roach and Philly Joe Jones.
That's not what did it for me. That's not what did it.
So then you tell me what did it, then you tell me how you developed your own individual sound on the drums, because when you were talking about someone kicking pedals on the organ with a drum set and that output, that sound there were those cats that were doing that stuff. It sounded sometimes like 3 or 4 instruments. But I want to know from William Hooker how you developed your own individual sound on the drum kit.
Okay. My family was steeped in the church. I learned music, and I learned the soul of this music from the church. I learned to give myself to something bigger than me that expressed itself through music in a church setting. That's the first thing. Without that, I don't think that I would ever approach music and creativity the way that I do. I would never do that. That's the first thing.
Okay, but what you're saying is
early on.
Yeah, and so this was the idea that you understood the music was above any person, and that you were able to channel the music coming through you. That was the first time you
very good word, channel. That's a good word.
What word?
Channel.
You were you were able to channel the music was coming through you.
Yeah, you're channeling a spirit.
Yeah, spirit. Yes. I love this.
Basically.
Continue, please. Yes.
You see, that's what you're channeling. You're not channeling something that people could actually quantify.
right.
It's really like that, and it happens many times in a group situation. So it's almost as if there's ego involved, but at a certain point you don't feel that. So that's the first thing.
Can you talk about? Do you have a memory of it as a boy in the church?
My father was a minister.
Well, that's a whole different. So he was at the pulpit.
My brother's a minister.
Wow. Now we're getting. Your sister's
my sister is a minister.
Oh boy! Now we're getting somewhere. Now
I was supposed to be a minister.
Oh boy!
Until I started hanging out with these guys in the club. I said I could be a minister. Why can't I be a minister?
Well, no, you're a minister.
I saw the minister come out of the motel this morning. Why can't I be a minister? There were quite a few things going on.
But for people that are striving.
What am I saying?
No, you're on fire. What I'm saying is that the
I'm on fire.
You're doing great. What I'm getting at is that it's about authenticity. Like you could feel the spirit, and if you're for younger cats that are going to listen to this interview, that are searching for authenticity in the midst of a lot of cynicism and diversion and trickery, more so than ever before.
Interesting.
Covert stuff. What would be your advice musically to feel the spirit, to know that you are?
Wow, that's a profound question. Oh, well, let me think about this one.
No problem. Take your time.
All right. come back to that one.
You don't dodge this, man. I mean,
no, I'm not dodging it. It's just that I don't want to give you the CNN version. I could give you the CNN version, but it wouldn't be complete.
Right, it would be totally surface based. Okay.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
I mean, just so you were talking about
you know what I mean.
You were talking about getting the education of the spirituality of music in the church. So continue on from there.
Originally, yeah, and then that just continued, but that continued in my own growth. You know, it's like a matter of like some people they hear music and they play in the 2 and 4. Other people they hear music and they clap on the 1. I mean, you know, it's like that.
I love it.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You know,
I do. I understand.
Yeah, right. So you can't down a person because they clap on the 1. You have to just like look at them and say, no, it doesn't work like that. It works like this, and then you try and do it by example, and then eventually they'll catch on, hopefully, to what it is that you love as much as the things that surrounds them, because you can't change somebody else's background, upbringing, somebody else's karma, somebody else's you can't change it, because basically I myself I believe in a certain free will. I really do, and I think that me telling other people how to play, what to play, and all that kind of stuff. I would just hope that I'm strong enough and healthy enough to be able to transfer this to them through the music.
Right.
And then if they're drawn to it, they will continue with it. If they're not, they'll float by the wayside anyway. No matter what you do, no matter how much money you give them, they're not going to do it correctly. It's something that you have to have inside your soul, inside your being, that makes you actually realize that what you're getting ready to do is bigger than you, and you give yourself to it to an extent, and because I mean all young people have egos. I mean, let's face it, it's about me. You know, it's about me, and at a certain point, they just absorb it, and if they absorb enough, it'll come to them. And it'll come to them honestly. That's the whole thing. Because I don't like to hit people over the head with these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things you got to do, because ultimately it won't work that way.
When you were a leader, or when you first became a leader of a group, can you talk about one of these organic examples that you're talking about?
Oh no, but go on. I cut you off.
Well, like for instance, this philosophy is very similar to. Well, it's not. It's different. I mean, you know, Dave Holland told me when Coltrane first came into Miles's group, he would walk up to him and say, "What do you want me to play? What do you want me to play?" Miles would just turn his back on him, and eventually he realized that. Train realized that Miles brought him into the band because he wanted him to be himself. He wasn't going to tell him what to play, because then he'd be constantly trying to play what he thought Miles wanted to play. And so, and to me, it's about nonverbal communication on the bandstand. And you're right. I have to believe that early on as a leader, this was not an easy thing for you as far as trying to get cats to feel. To go with the music. And I'm just looking for an example of when it was a growing period for you as a leader, when you basically were able to not pound someone over the head with your ethos or your mantras, and just you allowed it either to where they understood it naturally or they fell by the wayside.
Hold on 1 second, Jake. Hold on 1 second, okay?
Yep.
Hold on one moment.
Yeah, sure. Really, I feel very important.
Today is the day to vote. Today is the day here to vote. We're voting here.
Voting for what?
We have these primaries, and senator, people that are in the House of Representatives.
Wait, are you talking about? You live in New York.
New York.
So who's your district rep?
We have a guy named Nadler. He's a good person.
Yeah, man. I know that cat. Like, I'm a Long Island cat. I'm a Long Island cat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not.
Nadler.
I'm from.
I got to, and then up in Harlem, there's like Keith Wright, and
there's the guy Meeks. There's the guy Meeks.
No. Meeks. I think. Wait a minute. Meeks, I think, is from Brooklyn.
Yeah, no, I know he is. He's the one that Adler to me is like I don't know. Some of these cats. I mean, I'm glad it's better them than some tyrant. But I also look at it and I'm like I don't know how effective. Whatever, it's a different story. So you have your.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Because really, you're absolutely right. I can definitely relate to what you're saying.
I just feel like I feel like they articulate. They say all the right things. They're glib about certain. You know.
I hope that that's not the thing. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, you know what it is. It's like we're at a point now where it's like I'd almost rather have it's going to be very hard to get in this politically correct environment, but I'm looking for the Eldridge Cleavers. I'm looking for the cat.
You can keep looking. You can keep looking.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, I'd rather have those cats speak truth to power than have some guy like some puffy white dude talking about whatever. I mean, just sort of just getting reelected time and again, and really nothing really ever getting done because they don't have the free will. I think free will is. I think you're spot on, man. I mean, I think that.
What can I say? I just have to hold my nose and I have to vote. I mean, you know what I mean?
No, I mean, he's the lesser of two. I did. I mean,
that's what I have to do. I have to do that. My wife is telling me, reminding me that all these people are outside, right across the street. They're doing all this stuff.
Right.
I realize it. I get it. I know where that's coming from. But I just wanted to tell you why I stopped for a moment.
Well, no, I also appreciate that you told your wife that quote, this is quote unquote an important thing, which makes me feel good.
Oh, of course, yeah. Man. Of course. Otherwise, she just thinks I'm just hanging out.
No, we're not hanging it. We're working it through. But
well, yeah, as you know, I'm supposed to have gone to the gym because I'm on this strict regimen now.
No, and we can pick this up. We can go cook for a little while and then pick it up again.
Because drums are very, very. I'll tell you, if I don't go to the gym. And tonight I have a rehearsal with the quartet.
Right. If
I don't go to the gym and I don't rest, I'm telling you, man, it gets tough. It gets tough. I mean, really, seriously. You have to keep yourself together. If you can't keep yourself together, you're just like floating through. You're playing yesterday's, leftovers. I don't want to do that.
I dig. I know. I did. But I want to get back. We got a couple questions here in the holding pattern. One of them is this idea of when you put your doctrine of free will on the bandstand. When you saw it as a leader, when you saw someone struggling, and then eventually learning naturally how to fit into the music.
What did I do?
No, can you talk about a time that was inspiring to you when you early in your career as a leader? Because what you're talking about is a very unconventional. I mean, it may not be unconventional in the jazz sense, but to me, it's like I know what you're saying. You're not there preaching what you want. I want this played here and this play. Like you're not into telling people how to play stuff. But if you're going to form a band, that means people have to come around and be enlightened. And I'm asking about an example of some cat being enlightened under your tutelage.
Very interesting, because enlightenment is not to be taken lightly.
No.
I'll put it that way. It's not. And if a person were enlightened, I would just feel that I was privy to open the door that a person could possibly either choose to walk through or not. It's just... my job is to create a foundation and to point toward the door. And I'm using all of these things like symbolically and abstractly. But if I can do that through the compositions and through the feelings that I'm talking about as I play, and the other people around us play, and the structures are set up, and a person feels like they can walk through that unobtrusive door and actually be able to express themselves in it, I'm happy with what I get. I won't say I'm very simple. I'm not simple at all, but I have learned to accept many of the improvisers for what they have to offer, as opposed to what I want to get from them. And I say that with total respect for all those people that I've ever worked with and all those people that I call, because that's the way I body, and I'm paying you, and you do this and you do that. It's not about that. It's not about that at all. It's just about really like accepting human beings and having and being aware of human feelings. And if people can actually express themselves through what it is that is created, I'm happy with that. And I think that's kind of the beauty of improvisation in a way. That's kind of the beauty of this music, because it leaves a lot open to the person's interpretation. And I can't say that these people have been enlightened at all. I mean, because what would that be to say? That they're good human beings? Would that be to say that, they go home and they treat their wives and family properly? What would that be to say? That they could play a good solo? I mean, it's all these different things.
Well, I'll give you an example.
You know what I mean?
I'll give you. I did a live radio interview with Stanley Clark yesterday, and he's talking about Horace Silver. And so I just want you to listen to this story.
Oh, I see.
And I want you to talk as a leader. I want to know how William Hooker handles something like this, because I know you've been through stuff like this. So Stanley's 19 years old. He's on the road with Horace Silver, and he's playing this tune called Tokyo Blues, which has this really sort of weird 3-note.
I know it. I played it a million times.
A million? You know it. I mean, it's just got this like CGC. There's some 3-chord.
I prefer Nika's Dream, though. I prefer Nika's Dream.
I know you have a deep bag of tunes, because we still have to figure out. We still have to go to how you learn to play free.
I prefer Wise One. Oh yeah, but go on.
Yeah. So anyway, Stanley's 19-year-old kid from Philadelphia. He's on the road, and they're playing this tune, and he's bored. He doesn't want to play just three, and he's going. Bop, he's playing wrong notes. He's playing different notes. He's screwing around. And
he's messing with the guy's head, because everybody knows when they talk about that person, they know he's one of the baddest of the baddest of the bad. They know that.
Well, no, but listen to how this is where the rubber meets the road, and I want to know how Hooker handles something like this. So you have
all right,
so again, just you have a young kid who is coming from Philly. Sort of wild, wanting to express himself, a little bit arrogant. Okay, so Horace, the set ends, the night ends, they're off the bandstand. Yeah. Next day, Horace comes to his hotel room, knocks on the door, says, "Hey, Stanley, how you doing, man?" And he's got a very easy way, easy flow talk, and he's like, "You like the hotel? Everything's going well?" Stanley's like, "Yeah, man, it's great." He's like, "Well, listen, man," he's like, "You're playing some wrong notes on this tune, and today's Tuesday, and so by Thursday or Friday, if you don't have this put together, you'll be back in Philadelphia on Saturday."
Yeah.
And it was like Stanley said, he goes, right, I mean, he practiced these 3, it wasn't that he couldn't do it technically, it was about discipline, it was about respect, it was about just having the ability to take direction about somebody's tune. And when easily you could have thought about, like, if I was the leader and if I was pissed off, like, after the gig, I might have just confronted him, and it might have been an ugly situation. But here, Horace waits till the next day and basically just very blunt about it. So, I mean, in the William Hooker world, how do you handle something when you know that there's someone who's being a little bit edgy and you need to reel them back in? How do you do it? Can you give an example?
Yes, I can. In my case, I try to first tell the person that I respect what they're doing. But in my case, in many times, I don't say anything. I just replace them. I don't say anything. I don't try to tell the person why this happened. I don't give the person warning. I don't get into any of that.
Wow.
I just replace them, period. And they'll find out some sort of way. Maybe they'll find out through Facebook.
Well, it says, I mean, you don't even go to the point of...
No. Why?
You're the leader.
So what?
I'm not saying you have. I'm saying I love the method, but you're telling me you don't just call the person and say we're going with somebody else. You don't even tell them.
No.
So they might show up at the gig and there's somebody else playing in their spot.
But they don't show up. They don't usually show up.
Well, then how do they know though?
They know because
I've never seen you put anything on Facebook that like don't show up. We're
No, I wouldn't do that.
But I mean, like how do they? I mean,
but that's usually the way that it happens. Or else you have a rehearsal, and that person didn't go to rehearsal, and then when you go in, the group is a different group. I don't have time for all of that. I don't have time for it. What am I? Holding hands of children? I don't have time for it.
I know, but just.
I really don't have time for it.
No, I know you don't. I know, but I cannot believe.
Serious. I'm dead serious. You think I'm playing?
No.
I'm not playing.
No.
I'm not playing.
There's no way that there's, I have to believe that there has to have been some kind of verbal communication at some point with someone who you basically said, we're.
No. I don't want to do that. I don't do that. Because then that gets into a big argument. And if I go to a rehearsal, I have a rehearsal going on, and things are messed up, I'm not going to drag down a whole rehearsal of like 4 or 5 cats for one cat that won't do what I want him to do. I'm not going to do it. Because you got to remember, you got like 5 people there, or 6 people there, whatever, quintet, quartet. You got to really think about everybody. You can't think about like one person that's going to do craziness or do whatever they feel like doing. It's like teaching a class.
All right.
If you have a class of like 30 children, one child can destroy that entire class.
That's right.
Are you going to use the whole? Are you going to use all of your time straightening that child out when there's like 29 others?
Nope.
That you've got to really be dealing with. I don't do that. I just don't do it. Period. Seriously.
We're not talking about a young child misbehaving. We're talking about a musician who might have great chops, but is very arrogant and cocky. I've
come across that too.
So I guess all I'm trying to say is how do you get your point across? I guess here's the other point. Horace didn't fire Stanley. He said, get your shit together, and if not, you're gone. So how do you get that? How do you get that point across?
Well, you see, that's a different situation.
Very much.
You got people on the road. If you got people on the road, and you can't be getting people, from that town or that kind of stuff. That's a different thing because you hire people for a certain amount of time. But my case has never been that long a time period because the times have changed. Maybe they haven't changed for the people who have steady groups and they're on the road all the time and they pay people whether they're playing or not playing and all that kind of thing. So I know there are people that do that,
right.
But I've never been in that situation, so that doesn't work for me. But the situation for me has been I really have to find out each time that I do something, and also because of the number of different kinds of projects that I have going on, I have to try and find out who fits into a certain project. If a person doesn't fit into a certain project, I just don't include them in the project. That's all. I don't go through this whole thing. I don't go through it because I've got other people I have to deal with, and I also have deadlines. You also have deadlines. You have so many times to rehearse. You got to get everybody there. 5 people, right? Everybody has to have their own schedule together and everything. And you have to have all the music documented for them. You have to have all these things, and you have to come in there with a good spirit, healthy, and feeling like you had energy to be able to deal with what you have to deal with. What you're molding. Now, if I have to spend all of my time with this particular instance, I'll try and be as diplomatic as possible. But at a certain point, if the message is not going across, I'm not going to be the one that puts this in the newspaper or any other place that the personnel has changed. I'm not going to do it. I don't have time for that.
Sure, no, but but you just mentioned there is some diplomacy though. So that's all I want.
I think that I think that there. I won't say. I won't say diplomacy. Sometimes it's just out of just pure respect.
Right, exactly.
That a person can't keep up with you, or a person has a different thing going on, or a person's really not even there with you.
Right.
You're just a person that's, when I sense that I'm just a blotch on their resume, I don't owe these people anything. What do I owe them? I'm going to be on their resume anyway. Whether they sucked or they did well. That's all I am. They're looking after their own career. What am I doing? I'm running around chasing these people for what? That's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. Seriously, I really do. So that's my approach, and I don't think I think it's a very realistic approach.
Right. No, I what I'm gathering is that there's nothing prolonged with William Hooker. It's
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I did. I did. You don't have time for the prolonged stuff, but you are a professional, so you have to figure out. Everybody
who can work with whom.
Exactly.
Like you're not only guiding one person, you're guiding a group. Now you sense not only the relationship with people with the music, you sense the relationship of people with each other. You sense all this kind of stuff, and you have to be able to juggle all of these balls in the air so that they work. So that when it's time for the performance or it's time for the coming together of the musical aspect of it, it works. You see?
Yes.
And I have to be the kind of a person from the drum seat to be able to direct these people into their own lane. Because a lot of times you get a person that's crossing into somebody else's lane. That's not when group things happen. Yeah, but you have to be able to know how to be able to guide the music part of it.
I wanted to ask you about why you moved.
And in my case, Jake, thankfully, I've been surrounded by excellent musicians that understand not only where I'm coming from, but they understand the importance of music in itself, as opposed to this is my career, and I got to make this move today, and on Wednesday I got to make that move, and then Saturday I got to be at this place so somebody can see me, and then
right. That's called scheming.
Playing the angles.
No angles with Hooker. Well,
it's called scheming. All right, so some people are scheming.
Right.
But basically, I've been really, really lucky to deal with excellent musicians, and
that's
because
great.
of that, I've never had to deal with things like that. Sure, sometimes you go into a situation the musicians are full of themselves. That can happen, but that happens rarely. It happens. Full of themselves to the point of just being obnoxious. You know what I mean? That's rare. But when it does happen, and I sense that that's happening, I just kind of step out of the picture.
I guess more to the point. I guess maybe the better question is when you really connect with somebody on that level and you're synced in and you see the potential, but they're not there. How do you help them grow?
Oh boy, that's a difficult question.
Well, you've already. The other with the CNN question, I can't even remember what it was now.
What I try to do to answer that one, I just really try to be an example. I try to be an example because that's the best thing that I could possibly do. I can't play the instrument for them. I can't tell them where to be and when to be there. I can't tell them the various things a person has to do, like be on time.
Right.
Like dress appropriately, don't be smoking too much weed over in the corner.
I'm actually talking just purely tech.
Not
that stuff's important. I'm talking about on the bandstand, and this person has potential.
Sure.
And you want them to stretch out. That's what.
Sure.
How do you use it as an example? How do you?
I have to push them.
How?
By either setting up. Well, you see, this is a word situation, but it can be. You can understand it.
Yeah.
I have to push them. by either giving them a composition that will highlight what they are about, or I can put them in a situation where one instrumentalist has a relationship with another instrumentalist in the band, so that they can feed off each other, and I can also push that agenda, or I can tell a person to be totally silent and listen to somebody else's interpretation of what's going on.
Then now we're getting somewhere. Now we're getting
that's
somewhere.
Also an example.
Yes.
I mean, there's 9 million scenarios you can do. It's like it's 9 million scenarios you can do in terms of music, and I just try to find the best one that will suit the person's temperament, the person's skill, the person's desire to be a better musician. Because I have to sense that in the person as well. I can't put it there.
Right.
But and then the person takes it seriously or doesn't. And it's like a life lesson. That's what it is for me. And that's the way I approach it. That's the way I approach it. I've approached it that way for quite a while. So that's what I would do. To be really basic about it. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean,
am I making sense?
Well, we're just chiseling away. We're just getting there. I mean, we're getting deeper. Yeah. I wanted you to pontificate a little bit on this. I'm fascinated with this idea of. I want to get your philosophy on the idea. A lot of R&B and rock groups today, blues. Everyone's focused on where the one is. Where's the one? You got to know where the one is, and in the song, and to keep the rhythm. And I wanted you to talk about your philosophy when you get into a free improvisational, moment, or when you're for a few minutes you're jamming and you lose yourself in the song. What your philosophy is as it relates to any note can be the one, and that's how you find it again. Is the idea any note can be the one? I wanted to get your philosophy on that.
I really don't have a philosophy on that because I kind of understand what you're saying, but in another way, I kind of don't understand what you're asking.
I'm just saying when you the idea.
You know what I mean? Like I kind of understand it, but I wouldn't want to put words in your mouth in terms of the interpretation of what you're saying. But I kind of don't understand that.
Well, for instance, like I mean, if like with a psychedelic. Yeah, with psychedelic rock bands from San Francisco, where you spent quite a bit.
I didn't really listen to that many of those.
Right. No, what I'm saying is that one of the drummer from one of those bands said, if you ever get lost in the improvisational jam and you lose your way, just know that any note can be the one because it'll always come back around. And that's all I'm trying to say is I asked the same thing to Reggie Workman too when Train was playing the thesaurus of scales.
I don't know if I would agree with that.
So tell me your thoughts on it.
Music is a discipline. It's a spiritual path, and if you find in your playing that you're approaching that path and it's becoming clearer and clearer, and it's revealing itself to you, you just continue there. It's very simple. It's very difficult, but it's very simple. You see, I mean, it's not like it's nothing that you can just plan when you get on the level that I know that you're talking about.
Right.
You don't plan that. You don't. I mean, it goes past logic. It goes past logic, and it gets into a certain level of abstraction, which is a much higher level than even intuitiveness. It gets past that. And you see, so I just leave it. Once it's there, I try to do all I can to be prepared for its happening. And then once it has happened, I'm fine with that. Because usually, even after I hear it, if it's documented and I hear it, sometimes I don't even know who that person is that did it. That just goes to show you how little I feel the person has to do with what you're talking about.
No, I guess what I'm trying to get at is this.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
I absolutely no. And I actually think
it's like losing yourself to find yourself.
Exactly. It's beyond. It's defies. It's beyond logic, and that's what. And what I'm getting at is that I want to know in hooker world this ability where you have this huge bag of, and that was the other thing about your generation, just having this big bag of standards and tunes. You were in this organ trio, you were playing bebop, you were playing jazz. But that's, in my way, what you're talking about there is how you learned to play free jazz. I believe that. And I want you to talk about how you learned how to do that. Because you were just playing standards for a long time.
I learned how to do it by doing it. And actually by trying to, myself, by writing things that, for me, that would work for me as doorways into it.
Like what? What kind of things would you write?
My own songs. The very same songs you've been listening to all along. All the songs that you've listened to on all my discography, those are all my own songs.
But I mean, but there was a period of time where you were having to learn to go beyond.
Then you leave that. You leave that, and you have to write your own. You have to write your own playbook, because nobody really wanted to write a playbook for a drummer. Number one, nobody wanted to write a playbook for a drummer leader. Number two. And there's just this hierarchy of musicians that you have to do what they say to do, and I just refused to do it.
Right.
Because I had played too much music to do it. I mean, why would I go back to that? I told you when I started. Half these people you're talking about, please. Really, seriously. And I don't say that disrespectfully. I say that in the sense of like, the time just hasn't been put in, and I know it. I mean, I know it. And at a certain point, I wasn't going back to demean the instrument after all that I had learned, to go back to, playing on the one and two. I just didn't want to do it. So I had to write things for myself and others. I had to. And that was a period of frustration, a period of pain, a period of disrespect. A lot of things have happened. A lot of things have happened. But that's only because I figured that I had my own toolkit, and I wanted to see it. I wanted to materialize it. Like this guy said in this movie that just came out, Art Bastard. He said, if you compromise your art, why you want to be an artist?
Right.
What's the point of being an artist if you're going to compromise your art?
Yeah,
why you want to do? What's the point?
Yeah, well, in this day and age, people would say,
I might as well be an accountant.
Yeah.
I might as well be an accountant. Really, seriously.
Well, but there's a lot of cats in modern music today that would say, I just want to make a buck.
That's not me.
Well, I dig. I'm just trying to say that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right.
I mean, listen, how did I sound? Terrible. Come up, we'll fix it. I mean, that's what you can do now.
Well, all I know is that has been my method.
Right.
To actually write tunes for myself without any time signature, so that I'm totally free to do whatever I want to do.
That is awesome.
I have to be, because these people write music. I mean, they write music for everybody else. You ever see them writing the drum music?
No.
I just asked you a question, seriously. Did you ever see them write any drum music? Did you ever see any? All you see is a bunch of X's and dashes, right?
Well, I mean, the only cats that I know...
Seriously?
No, I mean, the only cat was like Kwasi Badu, Babatunde, Olatunji,
No, I'm talking about in this music that we're talking about.
Oh, no.
Why? Am I a musician? What am I?
Well, yeah, a lot of people just say you should just be an accompanist. I'm with you.
Well, even if you're an accompanist, a piano is accompanist. Don't they have notes written down on paper?
Sure. Yeah.
Don't they? I mean, don't they?
Yeah.
Don't they have notes written down on the paper? And why is it I just get this blank sheet? Well, I don't get it. I'm supposed to do what? How does that work? Now you may think. Do you understand where I'm coming from with
Hooker, I'm having a ball, man. I mean, you're incredibly good at just flowing through this stuff. I mean, of course, man. I mean, listen, it's homage to your. You started at an early age.
Yeah, I did.
You understood the language. You wanted to create new language. It is a language. I'm a non-musician, and this is why it's awesome for me to be able to take these stories or pontifications and disseminate them, because we're living in a very formulaic time. I mean, I'm sorry,
Oh,
but,
yeah.
and that's and it's very
You're right. It's getting worse.
right. It's very formulaic.
You're right in saying that.
Yeah, it's very digitized. It's very formulaic, and music is now made for pacification rather than burning, which I think we need to pick up on in our next session, because you have to go to the gym and get out.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
See? You are totally conscious.
Oh yeah,
I'm on
my path to enlightenment, Hooker. Okay.